it was a bit lonely. I came to the States without knowing one word in English.
Okay, wow.
One.
Look at you now, man. Your English is on
Yeah.
point, man. You've come a long way.
Well, I didn't know English, um, and it was very rough. I didn't have very many friends, um, and I felt like
Hey everyone. On today's episode of the Two Left Feet podcast, we had on the incredible, the spectacular, the amazing Enrique Lugo. He is the creator and owner. He says he doesn't like that, but he's the owner and creator of Projekt Bachata. That's with a K. Don't forget that. He is from Venezuela, currently living in Kansas City. Great episode where we talk about him moving to America, what that was like, man. Him having to learn English, man. He says he got bullied as a child because he didn't speak English, man. He says he really didn't even grow up dancing bachata, so we get to talk about his evolution as a dancer, man. If you're interested in bachata, this is a great episode. I know you're gonna like it.
Hey, all right, so I am now on the line with a Mr. Enrique Lugo, who is a bachata instructor as well as performer. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Hey, you were born in Venezuela, if I'm not mistaken, and you currently live in Kansas City. Is that right?
Yeah, born and raised in Venezuela. Came here in the early '90s. My dad got a job uh,
Okay.
for a company here, so that was my foot into the United States.
Okay, sure enough. And if I'm not mistaken, you are the owner and the creator of Project Bachata, which is a online bachata course. But I know you also have like classes as well, a dance studio, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I got to expand on that a little bit.
Please.
Um, when I originally created Project Bachata, I didn't want to label myself as an owner or a CEO.
Ah, okay, okay.
What I wanted to do was that I wanted to create an open source project for anybody to be a part of. So just kind of trying to raise the awareness of Project Bachata or of
Okay.
project, but Bachata.
Exactly. I
So,
understand that.
but but I am expanding here in Kansas City. I've
Hey.
seen quite a bit of interest not only here but through YouTube. So, I got some things coming down the pipeline. Uh, so although it's kind of an open source project, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a studio. It's kind of a little bit of everything.
Okay. I mean, I definitely want to talk about Project Bachata, man. We're definitely gonna get into that, man. But I want to start things off, man. Tell me, man. I've never been to Venezuela, man. Please tell me what was your childhood like growing up in Venezuela, man?
So, you hear that typical story where you grow up in the streets. Back in the '80s, the majority of the time that I spent in Venezuela was '80s, early '90s. Um, it's a very beautiful place. I grew up in the city, but a couple hours away, you got the beaches, you got the mountains. There's just a little bit of everything. Um, so we grew up with a big family. I have um, I have an uncle that's got 10 kids, and you know, uh, they were used to just finding an excuse to throw a party. And whenever they did throw a party, it was almost like a barbecue fest,
Nice.
and it was all dancing. The thing is that it was street dance. So it could be merengue, it could be salsa. Uh, didn't listen to much bachata at that time, but we just kind of just danced to it. So um, from what I recall from my childhood, it was just spending time with my cousins, um, dancing.
Okay. I
Yeah.
understand that, man. Is I guess salsa merengue kind of big in Venezuela? Is bachata big there or not
Yes.
really?
Uh, you know, bachata really wasn't around in Venezuela back at that
Oh,
time,
okay.
but everything that's the traditional cumbia and especially merengue was is pretty big,
Okay, okay.
right?
So you definitely grew up in like a dancing household then, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's just how important was music to your family back then?
Well, my parents not so much. It was mostly tied into uh, that get together like barbecue ambience, right?
Mm.
You had the my uncle and the adults, next to the grill barbecuing. They're the ones who kind of have like control of the music. Of course, before the party got started, it was just kind of like the music from their time, and
Right.
once our friends, uh, started to tag along, started to arrive, then it just kind of switched over. But uh, you know, it's amazing the difference in culture because when I first came to the states, a get together was sitting around the table and having a conversation
Okay.
while the kids ran around.
Mm.
No music, maybe some Luis Miguel, in the background, um, but nothing quite like the the ambience back in Venezuela. And it from what I hear after having discussions with my friends, it's kind of not necessarily just a Venezuelan thing, but a Latin culture that you just have to have music. A
Ah.
barbecue without music,
Okay. That doesn't sound right.
right?
I'm curious, man. I don't know if you can answer this, man. Do you think why that difference is?
You know, I I honestly can't tell you. I want to say that it has a lot to do with that uh with like just this Caribbean or tropical culture, the temperature.
Mhm.
There's more room outside, number
Okay.
one. Um it, it, I also know that I also feel like you might get a noise complaint here and there if you
So
decide
true. Yeah.
here. Yeah, but definitely over there, it was no no real noise complaints. Music on and everybody did it. So
Okay.
and it was more of an outdoor activity rather
Okay.
than indoors. Here,
Okay.
I know here in Kansas City, as soon as it starts to snow, man, it can get pretty rough.
Oh yeah, dude, you are in two different comment zones right now, man.
Yep.
So let me ask you this, mate. So you're growing up in Venezuela and everything. Um, uh, did you ever? I guess did you ever take dancing seriously in your youth, or was it kind of just like like a side hobby of yours?
No, no, I never took it seriously. It's one of those things that everybody did.
Right. Okay. Right.
Everybody did it. Um, I never, if it would have been something that was unique, I would have taken that and kind of ran with it. But everybody did it, so
Right.
yeah, I just never. And plus, I was in my yeah, that was my early days.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about school at that time.
Okay. Okay. So no,
So
I definitely understand that, man. So yeah, you're growing up and everything. And how old were you? I guess when you moved to USA. How old were you?
early teens.
Okay, early teens. Okay.
So yeah, junior high, high school. So it was a pretty big change in culture.
Okay. And I know I heard this, man. I know you also do capoeira, right? Did you pick up that in Venezuela, or is that something you did in America?
No, that's something that I picked up in that's something that I picked up here in the States.
Ah, okay.
Um, Dance has kind of been something that's been kind of laying dormant in me. So it's something that I did culturally on a daily, weekly, monthly basis where I was from. And then when I moved to the States, it just kind of, disappeared. It all went away. I didn't come here during my adult years, so it's not like I could have just hopped in a car and headed down.
Right.
Um, so after quite a bit of time uh, of just not really being involved with music, I wanted to do a martial arts.
Okay.
And so I went online and I started to look up different martial arts, started to look up, karate, Krav Maga, Kung Fu. And then I came across Capoeira and I was confused because I was like, man, these guys are dancing and fighting at the same time
Right. Yeah.
on here. I got to see what all this is about. So, luckily, I was able to find a place here in Kansas City that offered capoeira classes, and that was kind of like what opened the door back up to dance for me.
Okay.
It was an excuse, I got to get a little bit of fitness in there.
Yeah, I've seen them. That stuff is intense, bro.
Right, right.
Let me ask
So,
you this. Oh, well, keep
yep.
going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, no. So, so I trained capoeira for a couple of years, and then got into, the studio that I was at. Um, they they had a performance team, and the performance team, in order to be a part of the performance team, you needed to, learn how to play a couple of the instruments, learn how to play the beats. You had to learn how to sing songs in Portuguese,
Oh
uh,
wow.
and also perform. So performing wasn't just learning the dance; it was learning the whole culture.
Okay. Okay,
So,
I get you.
mhm.
Hey kid, come here. Hey, if you could leave like and subscribe for the channel, share with the people, that'd be
I get
amazing.
you.
Mhm.
And so I wanna go back, I guess, really to when you first moved to America, man. You're going from Venezuela to a whole new country, man. Tell me, what was that like for you, man, moving to America?
And it was, from what I recall, it was very lonely.
Okay.
We moved to a town called Lawrence here in Kansas. It's the University of Kansas is right there. So it was a bit lonely. I came to the States without knowing one word in English.
Okay. Wow.
One.
Look at you now, man. Your English is on
Yeah.
point, man. You've come a long way.
Well, I didn't know English, um, and it was very rough. I didn't have very many friends, um, and I felt like those friends that I did make were there to take advantage of me.
Wow. Okay.
Uh, and just to show you how little English I knew, I remember my parents taking me to a Kmart back when back when they were around,
Right.
and I remember I wanted to step outside and I saw these big double doors with uh, with almost like these big orange buttons that had words on them, and I couldn't read what it said. Little did I know, it said something across. Uh, the fire exit or something like that. And I just went up to it and it was big and orange and I pressed it. The alarm started to sound. People started to evacuate.
Oh wow.
Um, Fire trucks started to show up. I mean, it was uh, unforgettable. Haven't
Oh,
forgotten about
shucks.
that.
That's intense, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, man. I don't know. I don't think I've ever been to Kansas City. Is there a big I guess Spanish population in Kansas City?
There's a large Hispanic population
Uh,
here in Kansas City.
okay, I never know that.
Uh, Primarily more from Central America, but
Uh,
there are little cliques or groups from Colombia, from Venezuela, from Brazil, from different parts of Latin America. So not quite as big as probably
Texas.
LA or yeah Houston or Chicago, but yeah, I depending on who you speak with. Some people say that the Latin community here is pretty small, but I think it's pretty big.
Okay. I'm curious, man. Why did you think that some of your friends back in the day were trying to take advantage of you, man? What gave you that impression?
Um, well, they would ask me to go buy things
Oh.
with my money,
Okay.
and I didn't quite understand what was going on. I just remember the little money that I did have. Um, I'd buy candy, and they would take it.
Okay.
Or my parents would get me something and I'd take it to school and I'd show them and then they'd take it from me and tell me that that they'd be giving it back and then just never got those things back.
Okay, I understand, man.
So yeah.
No, I definitely understand that. I'm curious. Tell me about your process learning English, man. How did that come about?
Oh man. Well, the thing about being Hispanic in high school is just the peer pressure.
Uh,
There's I don't really want to pull out the racism card, but from what I recall, uh, during that time, there was a lot of discrimination.
I
So
understand.
I was pretty hell bent over just getting rid of the accent.
Okay.
Um, so I heard that if you wanted to perfect your English, the best way was to listen to cartoons.
Uh-huh.
And because they pronounce all the words.
Right, right, right.
They don't cut anything off. They overpronounce it. They talk slow. Um, and I remember my sister and I used to just kind of repeat what they would say, and we would hide in the closet and we would interview each other. Uh, and yeah, so little by little, my goal in the 90s and early 2000s was to get rid of that accent, and it was by just practicing just over pronunciation.
Okay.
Okay.
Is
So
that I'm curious, is that I'm trying to improve my Spanish, man. So I've been trying to learn Spanish since like middle school, man. um is that a way that, I guess myself and others could also improve their Spanish is maybe watching some Spanish cartoons?
yeah, definitely,
Okay.
definitely, and uh mimicking other dialects.
Mm.
So I know that when my friends see me, uh they try to speak Venezuelan, by using like
Ah,
the typical sayings, and of course they come up to me and just joking around, and they try to talk Venezuelan, and it's the Spanish from Mexico, the Spanish from Argentina. It's very
I said
unique.
it's all different, man. Yeah, my girl's from Puerto Rico. I know their Spanish is different than other
Right,
places,
right.
right?
But you can mimic the way that they talk, and just jokingly, and then somehow, just in the process of just having fun doing it, it sticks.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's my secret, is that if you want to truly learn something, like, attach it so that it doesn't become a task. Attach it to something that you love to do, so that, again, so that it doesn't just become its own task. You're doing it with something that you love. And
Okay.
it
Okay.
just seemed like a task. So
Okay. I
you're joking
understand.
around, with your friends, you're saying typical phrases that they would say from that country, and then it just sticks. Same as
Okay.
English. If you start to, if you bust out the Australian accent, oh, whatever typical phrases you'd say in Australia,
Yeah.
sooner or later it's gonna stick, and you're
Sure
gonna
enough.
talk like
Uh,
that.
yeah,
So
I get you. And so I'm curious, man. I guess you told me about how your school life was, but how was I guess how was your life growing up, in Kansas though and everything. Yeah.
well, from like my high school days,
I guess
or
high school forward. So yeah, like once you got to high school, once you got to college and everything, what was that like,
yeah,
man?
yeah. Well, what did it for me was, so during junior high, I really didn't do much, and I didn't have that many friends um when I went into high school. I got into swimming. That's when I became a little bit more social. I started to make
Okay.
more friends. Um, I and then college again. It was just keeping up with that social life, having that balance. Um, I went into it at first with just homework, homework, homework. And then I would start to go, and do homework at the library rather than at home. And I'd sit with the international crowd,
Okay.
um, you know, Asians, French, Hispanics, and that's definitely when doors started to open up for me.
Mm, okay. I'm curious, man. I don't want to like touch on any touchy subjects, man. But tell me, what was it? What was it like getting your citizenship here? Was that like a process for you? Or was that like
Yeah, it
nothing
was a
nothing too bad?
process. So I got my citizenship after I was 18.
Okay.
If you're below 18 and your parents get their citizenship, then by default you get it.
Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Right. So, but I, went through the typical steps of getting my citizenship after I turned 18. I got a letter for that interview, where they give you 100 questions to study from, and then they ask you 10 questions, and that's just kind of like the last step into acquiring that citizenship. Is you're interviewed by an official there. They ask you 10 questions out of the 100 recommended questions, and I passed it with flying colors. The only question that I was not able to answer was, what was the address of the White House, and I did.
I don't even know that, man. That's so crazy the stuff they make you answer. Cause I definitely
Yeah,
don't even know that, bro.
yeah, yeah. But after that, I was blessed enough to become a citizen of this country and
Nice.
here. So
That's awesome. I'm curious. How difficult was it for your father? Do you know?
my my father worked his butt off.
Okay, I
Uh,
believe it.
he I rarely saw him, and I used to complain a lot about that. I felt like he wasn't there much. Um, what I didn't know until until later on was that he was out there busting his butt to get us everything that we needed to live a comfortable life.
That's awesome.
So and it definitely paid off. He started off with an engineering position and kind of worked his way up, and now he owns his own company.
Oh,
So
that's awesome, man.
yeah,
I'm
definitely something to learn from there.
yeah. I'm curious, man. I guess how did that influence you, man? Knowing or realizing now, how hard your father worked. How was that influence you growing up, man?
Well, man, that's a difficult question because I tried to I took basically what he did, but dial it down a little bit. I felt like, as a head of household, I understood that he just wanted to provide us with everything. But the one thing that I missed, or that I wish I would have had, was that time with him. And time,
Okay.
you can't put a price on time.
Right, right, right.
It and it's kind of like sleep. Like, you can't make up for it.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm trying to maintain a balance in what I do. Not only work hard, but also, you know, also provide that extra time, or that little time, to my family, basically.
Okay, I understand, man. I definitely understand that. So yeah, you're going to college and everything, and are you dancing at all when you get to America, or is that kind of just like on the back
No,
burner?
no. Again, uh, I wasn't of age at that time, so it's not like I could just hop in a car and go to a club to social dance. Um, Before going back into college, I ended up dropping out of college, joining the military, the Air Force.
Okay, sure enough.
Um, and and I ended up being stationed over in Lajes Air Force Base in Portugal for quite.
Wow. Okay, shucks.
Yeah, and it wasn't until I got back. Military life was very, it was very strict, and there was a schedule with everything.
Say, I'm in the Coast Guard, man.
Oh, okay, excellent,
Yeah.
nice. Um, yeah, so I did that, and when I came back, I felt like I had all this free time, um, and that's kind of what initiated the whole getting into capoeira. We did do some martial arts in the military, so I was looking into doing a little bit of martial arts, but at the same time, at that time, I had also started to learn how to play instruments as well, like the congas. So again, music was something that had been laying dormant in me, and kind of getting into capoeira, I just kind of released everything.
Okay. And so I'm curious, man. I guess tell me about your beginner stage in capoeira. What was it like learning that?
Well, I was a fresh fish. Um, wasn't flexible at all whatsoever. Um, I I really I really started to enjoy it, um, because when you practice capoeira, they put music on, and you practice to music,
Right, right, right.
and that gave me something that no, I'm pretty sure that no other martial arts could have given me.
Okay.
And what kind of added more fuel to the fire is that, at the end of class, we would have something that they called hoda, which is where everybody got together in a circle. They got a group of people to play instruments live, and you practice everything that you learn, uh, there, almost kind of like sparring.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right, and that was at the end of every practice. So I looked forward to that. I looked forward to, uh, listening to the music. I looked forward to, practicing, and it just made me feel complete.
Okay. If I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken, man, like I believe like capoeira was kind of started by like the slaves, right? And they would play the music to kind of hide what they were doing. Could you give me some information on that?
correct. So, so I'm just gonna provide a general story.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
you come back and say, hey, it's not
yeah.
100% accurate, but yes. So capoeira got started with slavery. So what the slaves used to do is that they developed this form of martial arts and hide the fighting with music and dance. So, um, so when the plantation leaders would come out, they would just see dancing and music. They would play the atabakis or the congas, um, and some other homemade instruments, and that's all it was to them. What they didn't know is that they were kind of hiding that martial arts uh, with dance, and they were planning that revolution. So capoeira is more dance. You use your legs. You
Right,
know,
right.
notice that they don't use their hands at all because back in those days the slaves had their hands
Hey,
shackled.
right, okay.
Right. So um, most of it were just kicks and dance and all of that. Now they would, although their hands were shackled, they would use that to kind of block moves or. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how it got started. For a long time, after that whole movement and revolution, capoeira was illegal for quite some time until um, until it was made legal again.
Hmm.
And a lot of people didn't know this, but it breakdancing kind of evolved from capoeira.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. And I could kind of see I could see the similarities. I definitely could see that.
Right, right. So capoeiristas back in the day had nicknames, right? So everybody had their nicknames. If if a cop was looking for somebody, you know, you're able to give them a nickname, but you weren't tracked
Right, right, right.
because they didn't know your name. So if you look at b boys, they got nicknames too.
Right. Sure enough.
Um, but it evolved from that.
Okay, I didn't know that, man.
Yeah.
And so oh, and so you're getting into capoeira and everything. I guess at what point, or I guess how do you get introduced to bachata, man?
So there was that performance team, and I really wanted to be a part of that performance team. I really wanted it, um, because there were different dances like samba, amongst other dances, and I really wanted to learn how to play the instruments. So my my instructor told me, well, hey, if you want to be a part of this, you're going to have to learn how to sing in Portuguese, and you're going to want to learn how to play the instruments. Now, capoeira isn't from my culture, so I took
Right.
something that was from somebody else's culture, and I really uh, started to get involved with it. Um, Now, it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was. Although I did do it for approximately about 5 years, I didn't feel like it was quite me. Um, it's something that I ended up like I stopped doing it. I went back to college, and it wasn't until, and again, I don't mean for this to be trying to get into a touchy subject here, but it's important to me because this is where bachata came in for me. I, um, back in 2011, back in my earlier days, I was married, and I ended up going through a divorce, and that was a really really tough time for me. Um, I decided to just kind of go back to my roots. I couldn't go back to Venezuela because Venezuela's just been doing pretty bad
Okay.
this last couple of years. I didn't want to take any chances of anything happening while I was overseas. So I decided to take salsa classes. And um, there weren't any salsa classes offered in Lawrence. Uh, so what I would do is that I would drive an hour up to Kansas City to take salsa classes, and um, the studio where I was taking these classes at, they would offer salsa classes, and then right after salsa classes, bachata classes, and I stuck with bachata or with salsa for a little bit, and then I was like, man, this bachata like stuff, just kind of grabbed my attention. It was a little bit more personal. Um, um, I just it touched me. So that's when I switched from salsa to bachata, and it's just been bachata ever since.
Okay, nice. That's awesome, man. I wanna um I wanna hear about your beginner stage, man, in salsa and bachata, man. What was that like?
Um, so when we were practicing in an empty theater back in the day. Um, Josh Hernandez, he is the owner of Viva Dance Academy. Back in the days, kind of when he was getting started, I wouldn't say he was just getting started, but kind of in those beginner stages, he didn't have a studio, so he would rent open spaces. So, um, got into bachata. We were practicing in a theater. All the lights were off except a little, tiny spotlight. And I I don't know, man. It's something that's difficult to put into words because it touched me. And there's one thing that my instructor said at that time that stuck to me, and it something that I just mentioned a little bit ago, but take something that you really love to do or something that you really want to learn how to do and attach that to something that you love to do. So I love to cook, and he mentioned if you're in the kitchen, do your basics in the kitchen.
Okay, okay.
And if you need, if you're cooking here and you need to get something from behind you, don't just turn around, do a turn
Okay, sure enough.
or do something to get to that other part of the kitchen as if you were dancing.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what I started to do. Every time I cooked, I would just put some music on and I would find creative ways to get from one side of the kitchen to the other side of the kitchen.
Nice. Okay. I have this I have this theory, man, and I've talked to some people about it, man, but I feel I have this theory that people who grow up listening to, that genre of music, whatever it may be, if there's
Mhm.
a dance associated with it, they pick it up easier
Yep.
because they've listened to that music, pretty much all their life, man. Did you find that you kind of picked up, I guess maybe saw some chat a little easier, maybe
Yep.
quicker?
Yep. It was just like that. Salsa wasn't as easy for me to pick up because it consisted more of turn patterns, but bachata for me definitely was at least for the basics.
Okay.
Um, at least the basics. At that point, I hadn't gotten into the musicality portion of it, but I did feel it,
Mm, I understand that.
which is something that you have to acquire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does one go about, I guess, maybe if you're a beginner, how do you go about feeling the music? How does one, do that?
So if you didn't grow up with music, you definitely have to start to pick the music apart.
Mm.
Um, you have to dissect it. You have to pick it apart. I know that it's probably boring. If you have no interest in playing instruments, it's something that you're not even gonna. It's not even gonna cross your mind. But when you start to pick the music apart, start to isolate the instruments and dancing to the music with just that instrument um, isolated, then that's when you start to feel it because you're no longer doing it to a whole song, you're doing it to an instrument. So for
Ah,
example, just doing it to the bongo. Okay, the bongo, is the basic beat. Okay, so I can do the basic beat to it. Um, Add the bass guitar. Okay, the bass guitar kind of gives it a little bit more swag. You can do body rolls to it, and then all right, introduce the guitar, and then you start to kind of feel the shines, the footwork, and then you put it all together, and then you can almost in your brain pick the music apart and say, what do I want to dance to?
Okay, right. That's musicality right there. I feel like,
Yeah,
right?
that's more of an intimate relationship with the music, and after you do that, like you feel it. You
Mm.
just kind of feel it.
Okay, sure enough, man. So you tell me that you're taking these salsa and bachata classes. Like, I guess what's your progression, man? How long are you taking those classes? Like, what changes
Um,
for you?
well, the classes were only once a week, and I didn't feel like that was enough for me.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, real quick. And who was your instructor at that time?
Josh Hernandez.
Okay, sure enough.
Josh Hernandez. Shout out to Josh Hernandez. He
Shout
was,
out, shout out.
yeah, he was definitely a big part of my expansion in bachata. Um, and But yeah, it was rough because I definitely wanted to practice more. So since I couldn't practice more, I got a bongo.
Okay.
I told myself, okay, since I can't do this full time, I know that there's some videos available online. I'm gonna start to learn how to play the bongo. So then I would play the bongo, and that's what I would do for you know, the one musicality class a week and then one dance class a week.
Mm.
So then that added up to two classes. Um, and then I started, once I learned how to, start with the basics, and I was introduced to kind of like the social aspect of it, kind of like the club life. And, Josh would start to have these classes opening nights, just opening up with a couple of classes, and then that leading into a whole social
Yeah.
day
Okay. Yeah.
the ninth. So to me, I felt like I progressed s- slowly, only because classes were only available once a week.
Right. You had to drive an hour just to get there.
Right, right.
Mm. I'm curious, man. Let me ask you this, man. How important is going to socials when learning, when in that beginner stage, and pretty much throughout your whole dancing career? But how important is going to socials to dance?
I think it is. I think it's extremely important that you do that. When you're in class, you can count. You can, you're dancing with other people who are there to learn. Your instructor is pointing things out. But when you're social dancing, that's when you truly start to get to know who you are as a dancer.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes you get compliments, sometimes you don't. I remember this is another one of those things that I just haven't been able to remember. I remember there was this girl that I really really wanted to dance with, and you could just tell that she didn't want to dance with me. And the times that she
Okay.
danced, that we did dance together, I didn't feel like she was too happy. Now, what had happened is that, she was a foreign exchange student from Europe, and she left, and I kept, you know, practicing, and about after a year, when she came back, she kind of, and I asked her to dance, she kind of gave me that same look, but afterwards, the response that I got afterwards was, "Man, I leave for a year and look at you." And ever since, she's been one of those that if she sees me, I'm the go-to person. So,
What do
so
you What do you think? What do you think changed? You just got better. Wasn't happy dancing with a beginner. Like, what do you think that was?
Yeah, no, I think that definitely in bachata isn't all about turn patterns.
So
You know,
true.
uh, salsa
Austin
is
either though.
yeah, salsa is all about turn patterns, and I think that when anybody thinks Latin dance, the first thing that they go to is salsa. Um, Bachata requires more of a temporary, intimate relationship with that person. And once you start to, once you learn how to establish uh, that relationship with that person, again, it's something temporary while you're dancing with them. Uh, you could you could just do the basics for the whole song, and you know your partner would totally be okay with that if you give them that attention.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not all about turn patterns. Sometimes it's just all about making it all about her.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think sauce is strictly about turn patterns either. But I think in any dance, it's that connection with your partner. That's what makes it
Yep.
special, man.
Yep, you're right. Give
Definitely.
me 2 seconds. I gotta go get the charger real quick.
Okay, sure enough.
All right, we're plugged in. All right.
I want to ask you, man. Tell me, how do you think your background in capoeira, how has that influenced your dance style? Has it influenced it at all?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. During my years of capoeira, I decided to venture off. I traveled to Brazil a couple of times to
Nice,
learn how to
awesome.
do dance there.
That's awesome.
I learned how to play all of the instruments. I started to create a couple of instructional videos on how to play a couple of the beats,
Nice.
and I also got the opportunity to teach. So when I got into bachata, it was a familiar process, right? You know, travel. I knew I had to travel.
Yeah.
I had to practice socially. I knew that immediately I needed to get into the musicality portion of it. Um, and most of all, all of the experience that I got from teaching came from capoeira.
Okay. Okay.
So focusing on techniques, you know, that's not something that you pick up for somebody who's just starting out. You show a turn pattern, but what's really important is focusing on the technique.
Of course, always.
Mhm.
I'm curious, man. Well, just how I know that, dancing is a skill in and of itself, man. Tell me, what was it like learning to teach? What is that like?
Well, when you so teaching is an ongoing process
Oh
of
no.
learning as well.
Yeah.
So no matter how well you think you know the subject, it's always worth hearing even somebody else teach it, because there might be one little piece of information that you can take out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Just going to use that forefront. Um, so even as when I started the process of learning how to teach bachata, I would look into how other people taught it as well, to find out, what's dry content, what makes learning exciting. Um, so, so teaching is an art within itself.
Definitely.
And I also learned a lot about myself as I'm teaching things. I would kind of stop myself and either correct myself or expand on something a little bit more. And when you're out social dancing, you don't think about these things, but they kind of zip through your brain. Just kind of like, yeah, I taught this, so now that I'm dancing with this student, I'm gonna show her what it feels like.
Yeah, okay, sure enough.
in a live action
Yeah, I get you.
so, and I've also incorporated how to do things the proper way and how to do it wrong.
Mm.
Because I want I want the students to be able to know the difference between what's
That's
right.
very important. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Just showing the wrong way and the right way, because then you know what to compare it to.
Right.
I definitely understand that, man. And so you're you told me you're taking classes and everything. At what point, or I guess, how did the thought of I guess Project Bachata, how did that come about, man?
Well, that came off. There's a gap that we had missed. I started to practice full time, uh, with Josh, and I learned that he had put a team together. So he had various choreographies, bachata, salsa, and that's where I was introduced to the Island Touch Academy, which is Ataca la Hermana's kind of dance company. Um, so started to learn some of the performance pieces from Ataca la Hermana through Josh, and then kind of starting to go to different congresses and performing. That's when I was like, okay, there's there's so much more than just going from your house to practice and back and going out and dancing on Fridays or Saturdays. There's just so much more to dance than just that. There's, there's teaching, there's congresses, there's just so much going on. So, uh, I practiced with the team for quite some time, but I felt like I was limiting myself, and I was definitely nervous because I wanted to kind of take off and do things on my own, um, but I knew that I wasn't gonna get the support right offhand. Um, and so I left the team. It became something that was very um, every Monday's class, and it just felt like it was just too mechanical. And
Okay.
so I left the team, um, and for I would say that about the first 6 months I was lost. I felt like I wasn't learning anything. I felt like, hey, maybe I need to go back, and go take some classes again. Um, and I started to just kind of dive into the musicality portion of bachata, because that's something that you don't need an instructor for.
Right.
You don't need a studio for that. You just need to um, to take just some general musicality courses on YouTube, because in essence, music holds like the same foundation or the same patterns. Um, so I dove into the musicality portion of it, and I just had this urge to just kind of pass on my knowledge. I noticed at the clubs here in Kansas City, for every 6 salsa songs that they would play 2 bachata songs.
That's kind of how it is where I'm at, so I understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So I was like, okay, so how do I raise awareness? And I didn't start off with the classes. I just started off with, okay, I went through a very difficult time uh, quite some time ago, and that's kind of what got me into bachata. So let me create some instructional bachata videos and
Mm.
make those accessible for free on the internet for those who want to go out there and learn how to do the basics.
That's a great
Um,
idea.
so I slowly started to do that, um, and then I thought to myself, well, maybe I can offer these courses in Spanish, and I could reach more people. And I have a lot of instructors come up to me and say, hey, what you are doing is really hurting us instructors, because you're taking away from our business. And I don't agree with that,
I
because
wouldn't either, honestly.
what I do is that I teach the basics.
Okay.
That's all it is. Um, for further education, you need more instructions.
Definitely.
You need to go to a studio. That's where you learn your turn patterns. I don't teach turn patterns. I just teach how to do the basic steps. Um, so what I decided to do is that I found somebody who was willing to help. Shout out to Raquel, um, and we got a little bit more technical with the videos. And I said, okay, Raquel, it's just going to be you and me. I'm going to face forward. You're going to face back, and we're going to do the same move. And the reasoning behind that is because maybe you want to be facing the same way that person's facing,
Exactly. Yeah.
or maybe you want to see what they look like from the front. So let's give them both. And 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 yeah, man, that's how it all started. I started off with a couple of videos. I had some people say, "Hey, when are you coming out with more videos?"
Yeah. Hey.
Here in Kansas City, I became, "Hey, you're that YouTube bachata guy. Uh,
Nice.
where can I I really like your style. Where can I take classes?" And at first I was just dishing out the classes back to my old studio. But then I thought, hey, um, why not teach classes?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at. I've been teaching for like at a local studio. Most of my stuff is online and more performance wise, but teaching locally, not at a club opening up, um, but at a studio was, I would say, maybe approximately about 6 months ago.
Okay. All right. Sure enough. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I would say I don't going back to what you said a little bit earlier, man. I feel like online classes can never truly replace an in-person class, and it's because it's so different when you can actually have I guess that human to human interaction, that face to face interaction, man. So I definitely disagree with that right there.
Yeah. Yeah. You can memorize turn patterns,
Right.
be able to execute them, and you never know. You can be dancing with somebody who's familiar with bachata, or you can be
Mhm.
dancing with somebody who's just barely getting started.
Right.
So you got to learn how to dance both ways,
Sure
and just
enough.
either crank it up or tone it down.
Hmm. And I think you're saying it too, man. Like in class versus social, man. It's like social's like game time. You know what I'm saying? So when you try and do that pattern you just learned in the social, it's a different atmosphere than when you do it in class, man.
Everything goes out the window. You're not practicing to the same song. You're doing to a
Exactly.
different song, and you hear a drop coming, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, "What am I gonna do to get to that?" And you can't use the typical term patterns that you learn in
Right,
class.
right, right. So true.
So
I want
yeah.
to ask you this, man. What lessons have you learned from, I guess, yeah, from dancing that you're able to translate to your everyday life?
Um, you can I teach my students, while you're learning how to dance, especially when you're learning about body movements, um, to exaggerate what you're doing, give it your all, um, because that shows you what you start to learn what your limits are when you do that. And you can always tone something down, right? You can always tone your body movements down, but you can't do it the other way around.
Mm,
You can't be lazy about something and then expect to be phenomenal in a performance, right? Uh, you just can't do that. You can work hard towards something. you can give it your all, and if need be, you can tone it down and you can, you know, keep it cool, right? Um, so that's one thing. Another thing is, again, back to this is the third time I want to mention this. If you want to learn something, tie it to something else that you really enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Tie it to something that you really enjoy doing, because it's just going to make it that much more. It's going to make it that much more enjoyable.
Right. Sure enough.
Um, Last thing is, learn what you want to learn. Skip all the steps to learn what you want to learn, but always come back to the basics, and and learn it from scratch.
Okay.
I mean, that yeah. So sometimes students want to come in and they don't want to focus on the basics. They just want to focus on just learning the turn patterns. They don't do it. They don't execute it properly. And as an instructor, you gotta give them that, right? Because it's what they're coming for. But now that you've learned that, now you go back to the basics, and that's when you truly start to understand how it works.
Right, exactly. Everything comes from the basics. Stems from the basics.
Right. And I the way that I use that in real life is, especially in my job, um, I want to gather as much information on a project as possible. Uh, Once I have all that information, then I'll kind of go back and I'll start to look through things like through detail,
Mm.
because um, from a presentation standpoint, you're presenting, but you want to also know your product.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely understand that, man. I'm curious, man, for people, for beginners who feel like they might be like in a beginner's rut, like they're not improving at all. What advice could you give them?
Well, definitely going back to what we were talking about, social dancing. Um, so you don't have to go. You don't have to stay out till 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes some of the best dancers, you'll catch them earlier on in the night, because they're just there. They're there to dance. A lot of the dancers aren't really drinkers, so they're there to really enjoy themselves. Um, I hit my rough spot because I didn't put in enough time in social dancing. It was all practice. It was all practice. I felt like I couldn't learn anymore. And when I started to go out social dancing, I noticed that the follows, that the ladies would do things that I had just never seen before or experienced. Um, and so to me, that's really important. You can watch the videos, you can learn how to do the basics, but essentially you're gonna have to go to a studio and practice.
Yeah.
I recommend that you join a dance team, because that's when you really start to learn the technical aspect of things, and how to perform in front of a crowd of people that's just all eyes on you.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you cannot dedicate that much time to performance, social dance on your free time. Social dance on your free, even if it's with your kids, just grab one of them and and turn them and listen to the music and feel the music.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely understand that, man. I want to ask you this, man. Can you give me one tip that can make someone a better dancer immediately?
Immediately. Learn the music.
Okay.
I'd hate to I'd hate to kind of go back to the musicality portion of it,
That's
but
perfectly fine, man.
when you I'm gonna take Ataca la Alemana for example, just because I think they're phenomenal and they're a great example. Um, you watch their videos, they could be doing a performance or a social piece, which is usually more basic and not so many turn patterns, but they always look great while they're dancing. And if you really start to pay attention to why, it's because they dance to the music. They pay attention to those musical cues.
Right.
And it kind of looks staged, but it's not. It's not. It's just that they're paying attention to the music. They know what's coming. And once you start to learn, those little hints as to what's coming,
You
then
start
you just,
recognizing that pattern,
yeah, then
music.
yeah, then you start to execute maybe certain turn patterns that go to that beat.
Exactly. Yeah.
What makes it, you can do the basics and just have two moves in your pockets. But if you learn how to use those two moves at like in a proper part of a song,
Right.
you're just gonna look professional.
Hey, sure enough. See, I learned the music then.
Yeah, you can't just learn a piece of it. You gotta learn it all.
That makes sense though. That makes a lot of sense, man. I wanna real quick, Enrique. I want you to, if you can you give me, I guess, just some hints and tips for both follows and leads. Is there anything? So you've been teaching for a while now. Is there any common, I guess, mistakes that you see follows and leads making? Something that you wish you could correct?
Yeah, learn to read. Um, learn to read the follows or the leads, and try not to back follow.
Okay.
Essentially, what dance is a conversation.
Right.
A
Definitely.
conversation with two people. One person asks a question, and the other person responds to that question.
Right.
Sometimes, um, sometimes the conversation is great, sometimes the conversation is bad. If you're asking somebody a question and they're not answering that question, um, you start to get frustrated.
Yeah.
So, uh, same thing with dance. When you're having a conversation with somebody, you have to acknowledge and you have to listen, and you need to learn how to properly respond. And in dance, it's the same way. If good dancers will lead by hinting you as to what's coming next,
Yeah.
and as long as you listen and you follow through, um, then you're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Then
My girl calls it a suggestion. She said the lead is offering a suggestion. Yeah.
yeah, I always use the analogy of that conversation. Again, if somebody starts having a conversation on their own, asking questions and answering their own questions, I mean, you're gonna look at them like, all right, I'm not gonna talk to that guy.
Right.
Yes, if you just start pulling out, doing stuff all on your own, nobody's gonna want to dance with you.
Right.
It's a concept. This concept of having a proper conversation with somebody is something that that has been kind of burned into our brains ever since we were kids.
Sure
So
enough. Yeah. Social, being social. That's what a lot of it is, man. You go to a social to be social, right?
yeah, this time around, you're not socializing with words, but you're socializing with dance moves. So,
Sure
and
enough.
it's
Yeah.
the same way.
Yeah. This is some form of communication. I definitely know what you mean. I definitely know what you mean. I wanna I really, I guess I just wanna, thank you for taking time out your day, man, Enrique. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it, man.
appreciate you having me on. It's a little difficult to be on after Carlos Cintas, but hopefully I was able to fill in some gaps.
No, man, I appreciate it, man. I can tell you're very passionate about bachata, man. I know you truly enjoy doing what you're doing, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Real quick, I want to ask you, man. What are some events that you have going on in your life? What's upcoming for you?
Well, as of recently, I've teamed up with DJ Rez at Roomba Nights. There's a venue here called the Voodoo Lounge, pretty big venue. We might get a turnout of 300-400 people, but it's an event that's only once a month. So on a monthly basis, that's kind of what I got going on for him. Is just kind of opening the night up by offering some classes, as well as doing some performances on stage, live performances, while he's doing his set. I'm, I offer classes every Saturday here at Kansas City,
Nice.
and in addition to that, I got this ongoing instructional video queue that I got going on to where every week I try to shoot at least one or two videos to upload to YouTube. Um, and so that's all, those are all things that I'm doing for other people. Um, I also, what I'm doing for me right now is I'm working on a choreography that we will hopefully shoot here within the next month or two,
Nice.
to a bachata song, and hopefully upload it to YouTube, to get some good views. So
Tell me real quick, man. You say you're teaching in Kansas City. What for people in the Kansas City area? Where can they find you? Or where are you teaching at? And like what days and times?
well, so I teach Saturdays at 6 o'clock at La Terraza. Um, any information about what's going on, I either post on the Project Bachata page or on my personal page. I also, once you initially take a class with me, I add you to a WhatsApp group. And what some of the students like to do is that after a class, we'll record that turn pattern and they'll upload it to the WhatsApp group so that they can practice, on their own time.
That's awesome, man. Real quick, tell me, man. How you kind of already said it, but just please plug your social media handles. How can people get in contact with you?
Okay, so Project Bachata. The reason why I call it a project is because really for all of us, it's a side project.
Yeah.
Uh, you take what you're doing, your everyday activities, and maybe you don't want to make it full time, but you want to make it a little project. So Project Bachata, project spelled with a K and not a C. I wanted to make it a little bit more unique. All of our videos are available, or are the instructional beginner videos are available on YouTube at youtube.com/project bachata. Instagram, same thing, instagram.com/project bachata. Facebook, facebook.com/project bachata. So the same naming convention everywhere you go,
So no.
and you'll find me hanging out, on social media. So if you got any questions, feel free to hit me up. Any requests on videos, I have a queue of videos that I have shot and will still be shooting, but every once in a while, somebody will throw me a curveball. But I do listen to your requests, and although those videos probably won't be made available that next day or that same weekend, I do definitely put it in a queue to record and put it up on YouTube.
Okay, that's awesome. Like I was saying, man. I really appreciate it, man. When I upload this to YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, I'm gonna make sure I put all your contact information and the details, man. I got you on that.
Shit, thank you.
Of course, man. Like I said, man, I really, really appreciate it, Enrique, man.
Oh man, hey, it's something that I love to do, so I can talk about it for hours and days.
Yeah. Shout out, man. So, like I said, man, Enrique, thank you so much, man. I just want to tell you, man, enjoy the rest of your day. All right, man.
All right, you too. Take care.
Hey, all right, Enrique, take it easy, boss.
All right, so hey everyone. If you made it this far to the end of the video, I want to thank you so much for just watching this. I really hope that you found value in this. My whole goal in this endeavor is to give a voice to people, to dancers, and to give value to the dance community. So if I'm not giving value, it's kind of pointless. So I strongly urge you to please comment and let me know where I can improve, what I need to do better, what I'm doing wrong, and hopefully what I'm doing right, but my overall goal is I want to give content. I want to be helpful. So please let me know where I can improve upon. I'm new to all this, so I'm learning as I go. So I need feedback. Please comment and just let me know how I can improve. I would greatly appreciate that. That means the world to me, just to be able to interact with you all, have a conversation with you, and just see what you like and what you don't like. That means the world to me. I love interacting with you all. It means so much to me. But yeah, thank you so much for making it this far into the video. I gotta say, please leave a like, subscribe. If you don't like it, then let me know why not. Hit the down like button, hit the unlike button. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.